Hello, parents. How are you guys today? We are going to talk about, is it okay to spank your adopted child? Now, I know that if you have been through training classes, you know what they tell you, right? But then you also know how you were raised. And I'm guessing that you probably turned out okay. So you're going, all right, listen, they are saying it's not okay to spank my child. And yet I want my child to respect me. I want my child to be disciplined and to be raised up to understand authority. And so, where are you landing with the concept of spanking your adopted child? My name is Brooke Fremouw. I am a certified trauma support specialist and adoptive mom to 11 children. And today we are going to answer that question. So I can tell you, confessions. There are a few times that I have spanked my adopted kids that came to me at birth. And I look backwards now with more knowledge and understanding. And one of the things that really perplexed me about raising these kids from birth was the fact that traditional parenting strategies simply didn't work. If you've spanked your adopted child, you probably didn't get the response that you gave your parents. And so you're going, hey, wait a minute here. Nothing that I'm doing works the way that it did when my parents were parenting me. And there are reasons for that. So let's take a closer look at this. We're going to give you today 3 reasons why it is not okay. Yep, that's my official stance. It is not okay to spank your adopted child. And so, to the kids that are now teens and young adults that I had from birth, I apologize. I know better, and I can do better now as I'm raising up the rest of my kiddos. But the reality is that traditional parenting strategies do not work with adopted kids. Let's look at this. Number one reason why spanking doesn't work is because of cumulative harm effect. Now, if you've subscribed to me, you've heard this mentioned before. If you've never heard of cumulative harm effect, I want you to Google it. I want you to go onto Google and type in cumulative harm effect ACE study, ACE study, so that you can really understand what cumulative harm effect is. We don't have time for that in today's video, but cumulative harm effect causes a very polarized response in our children. And most adopted children, whether you get them at birth or you get them later in life, come to you with cumulative harm effect. And what that means is that their emotions do not run in the normal realm the way that a biological child would. They tend to be either in fight or in flight mode, and they swing into those things very instantaneously, right? Or they hide out in either fight or flight. And so when you spank a child, it perpetuates cumulative harm effect, which has a ton of negative long-term consequences, including inflammatory disease, vision problems, early incarceration, being in relationships with domestic violence, cancers, even COPD, addiction, and mental illness. Right. Those are things you don't want for your children. And so the fact that there is brain chemical shift that has taken place, a long-term one that needs to be undone, we don't want to do things that perpetuate cumulative harm effect. Number 2, let's hop right into this, right? They will blame themselves. You've heard that children of divorce blame themselves for their parents splitting up. Children are really good at guilt and shame. They're really good at saying things are my fault. Now, what you're saying here is, but Brooke, it is their fault. That's why they're being spanked. They did something wrong. I'm talking about the big picture here. You see, the one person that was never supposed to leave this child, their biological mother, whom they believed that they shared the same flesh for the first many months of life, they know as sure as they know that the biological mom's job is to protect them, to provide for them, to raise them up. And that one person that is not supposed to leave them is not there for whatever reason, right? And so the reality of the situation is that deep inside these kids, they typically have a mantra or an ideology that, hey, listen, I wasn't good enough, therefore my mom didn't keep me. If I had been better, my mom would have broken her addiction. If I was worthy of her love, she would have chosen to change. She would have kept her job. She would have been able to care for me and love me. It's my fault that I'm not with my biological mom. And so they may not voice that, especially if they're an adolescent, right? Like those are things that take some time to be able to formulate the concepts. But it doesn't mean that it's not down in there. And so when we spank our child, oftentimes that guilt and that shame of, you know what? Is this parent going to get rid of me too? My behaviors are so bad that this person has really a disdain for me. And am I going to end up gotten rid of? Is my place in this family really secure? And so when you spank a child, they go into that guilt and the shame and the doubt around the bond and the commitment. Because remember, the one person who should have been fully committed, and guys, I'm not saying like I've got a child that was placed with me from a biological mom that loved them enough to recognize that she couldn't provide the life and voluntarily place this child. She is a hero. She is so brave and so courageous. And so I'm not saying, right, that the biological mom is a villain in this scenario for whatever reason, including the child's best interest. They are not with that mom. And it makes them say, if that person's going to give up on me, why would you not give up on me? We don't want to perpetuate that internal dialogue that they can't even fully process. And then the third reason that we should not spank is it models that when we are angry or don't get what we want, that we hit. I had a grandchild come and live with me for a period of time that came out of a domestic violence situation with the biological father. And so that child came here. And the first time I asked the child to go to their safe spot, which is a strategy we use in Journey University for adoptive families, he choked me out. No joke. And then he kicked and he hit. And I stayed neutral in the face of all of those behaviors. He had learned when you don't like what you see happening, you hit, you act out. Because most of the time when spanking is done, it's done in anger. It's not done from a calm position. I know that in the parenting things that I have learned, you never spank out of anger. You spank when you're calm, you come back to the situation, you explain it, and then you spank the child. However, that is rarely how spankings take place. And even if they do, please don't do that with your adopted child. Okay. I know this is controversial, but that's why we're talking about it. The reality is that we don't want to model for children who have insecurities, guilt and shame based, a question as to whether or not they are going to be in this family long term. And it's not because of you, it's because of their circumstances. You may be the most committed, stable parent who reassures your child all of the time. It doesn't mean that your child feels the way that you speak into them, right? There can be a conflict between what you're saying and how they feel about their position in your family. And so the reality is that we don't want our children to learn, hey, listen, I don't get what I want. I don't like what I see. Therefore, I hit somebody else, because they will mirror that. And the opposite is also true with this grandson. As I started to implement 1, 2, 3, 4 parenting, safe spot, body regulation based reward incentives, we put the systems in place. And within 2 weeks, he stopped all of his aggressive behavior. Why? One, because we were tackling cumulative harm effect at the source. But two, he saw, hey, listen, this isn't how we deal with things in this household. When things don't go the way that we want, we remain calm. We show up neutral in the face of those things. And we deal with it by allowing the person who's having those big feelings to own those feelings and resolve them, and then come back and do conflict resolution, right? So I know that we're not here to talk about this, what to do. We're here to talk about what not to do, but hopefully you understand these 3 things are real valid reasons not to spank your adopted child. Number 1, cumulative harm effect is at play. Number two, they have blame that they put onto themselves that creates insecurities in their placement and attachment with you. We don't want to further that. And number three, it models that when we are angry or we don't see things that we like in behaviors of other people to hit. We never want to model that for a child that's struggling with their security and their relationship building. I hope that this was helpful for you. Please, in the comments, let me know what is your opinion around spanking adopted children. Hit subscribe so that you don't miss more of the content that we have for you and your adoptive parenting strategies. And thank you so much for your attention. Bye-bye.